Hello folks, hope everyone is well. I'm going to speak about some basic topics which I think are important to understand. They form the foundation of Jyotish, and then the more you can simplify here, the clearer will be your understanding. These words and concepts are so overused that their meaning has actually become lost and in some cases completely tarnished. And I think the most overused word in the past 2 decades is karma. Because the exhaustive usage of this word has been in the Western English-speaking world, the meaning actually has been influenced by the Christian tradition. And thus the meaning of karma has come to be understood as that which goes around, comes around, or you reap what you sow, or for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction, and so on. So in this way, it is often misused to denote luck, destiny, or fate. Karma is also misused as a way to explain sudden hardships in life. But its meaning is not meant to be connected to judgments and punishment, a way to sort of perhaps even the score, like an eye for an eye and so on. Yeah. Karma does, of course, echo the law of cause and effect. So simply put, karma is what? It's action, whether that's physical, whether that's mental, that results in a consequence. But remember, whatever happens is not just a consequence of action, but also a consequence of your thoughts. So, once you decide that you will no longer attach yourself to this action, or this thought, or this person, or this place, or this event, then you begin to see all that is happening around you as separate from yourself, and then begin to practice detachment. For most of us, it first means suffering through the consequence before we decide to let go. And therefore, we identify with the consequence just as much as the action or the thought itself. Right? But the important fact is that you decide, not someone else. There is no entity looking down and making a judgment and delivering a consequential punishment. Yeah. This is another reason why letting go on a regular basis through a spiritual practice is an effective way to dissolve karma, which, remember, not only stems from your actions, but also feelings of guilt, of shame, of blame. Because your perceptions of your actions and thoughts will also determine the consequence. Yeah, the cause and effect. So with this spiritual practice, essentially what you're doing is you're releasing the impressions in your subconscious mind that are bringing you back to the same place over and over again, like a spinning wheel. So now getting back to the technical bit, karma is basically what? It's a Sanskrit word, and it means to act. The law of karma teaches us that all thoughts, words, and actions begin a chain of cause and effect, and that we will personally experience the effects of everything. We may not experience the effects now or even in this lifetime, but it is inevitable that we will experience them. And the effects are also in proportion to our perception of our own actions. So that judgment and guilt can in this way be more powerful than the action itself and keep us in bondage. Right? Like we all know of people, and even ourselves at times, where we might have made a small mistake, or what we consider to be a mistake, or perhaps it was a willful action, but we regret it. But we keep punishing ourselves for it. In our mind, we keep replaying it, right? So that you're basically prolonging the effect. Now, there are 3 types of manifestation of karma. I'm going to go through that, and then I'm going to get into the astrology bit. The first is sanchita karma, which is accumulated karma of all of our past lives. And then is number 2, which is called prarabdha karma, for whose effects we experience in this lifetime. So basically, it is ripening that portion of the sanchita karma. right? But we're experiencing it only in this lifetime and is inevitable to experience it. And therefore it's called prarabdha. The third is called kriyaman or agami. And this is karma that we are currently creating by the here and now, our actions in the present. So what does Jyotish do? In essence, it attempts to dissect a person's karma from their birth chart. So I'm going to outline some excerpts from the classics, mostly Phalipika, which foretell a person's good karma. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about going beyond karma, going beyond that bondage. Now, of course, the first thing we need to see is the 10th house and the 10th lord. See whether there are benefics in the 10th house. Is the 10th lord in Kendra or a Trikona house? Is the 10th lord in a good sign? Exaltation, Multrikona, friendly sign, own sign. Is the 10th lord associated with benefics? Well, these all indicate good karma. So you are reaping the fruits of that good karma in this lifetime if you have those variables in your chart. Additionally, see if the Lagna Lord associates with the 10th house or the 10th lord through any sambandh, which is basically connection. If so, we can say that the person's purpose in life is to do good work. Yeah. Because remember, the 10th house is action, what we're doing in the here and now. Yeah. This can happen in the following ways. Lagna Lord in the 10th house is a very powerful position and suggests that you will have opportunities to fulfill your karmic purpose and even create good karma. According to Phalipika, this person will be revered by all, widely renowned, and disposed to virtuous deeds. His affluence will be similar to that of a king, and he will be long-lived. So if you have 10th lord in the Lagna, well, that's equally good. Lagna Lord and 10th lord exchange places. They conjoin, or they mutually aspect each other. Another excellent position. Both Lagna and the 10th house are seats of power and exemplify what we call the throne. So when both of them associate, or they're strongly placed, or they associate with benefic grahas, then you can attain high influence in life through your actions. Yeah. Now, what are some other things to consider here? Well, if the sun or Mars occupy the 10th house, the person will be a great and mighty person and liked by all. Why is this? Well, of course we know that the power of the sun and Mars attaining strength due to the fact that they're fiery planets, and we need fire in the 10th house to take initiative and to fulfill our ambitions. Also remember, Sun and Mars attain Digbala in the 10th house. So they will have the energy for that non-stop action. Sun or Mars in the 10th house will also give the ability to put persistent effort into an activity which leads to success. Yeah, and possibly fame. If the Lord of the 10th house is well placed, the person will be able to accomplish great undertakings involving much valor and heroism, quote unquote. Well placed means in good houses, basically. For instance, Mars is your 10th Lord and it's sitting in Aries. But if Rahu, Saturn, and Ketu are in the 10th house, the results will be that the person concerned will do, quote, sinful and wicked acts, unquote. Now here, of course, we need to apply this to current times. And in the current era that we live in, Rahu is, of course, very well placed in the 10th house. Reason being, in the current era, you need the ability to go beyond the conventions, the social rules, to take risks in order to survive and in order to thrive. Though it doesn't take away from the fact that the person may indeed do quote-unquote sinful and wicked acts. But whether the person is engaged in rightful or sinful acts, that cannot just be concluded simply by malefic planets in the 10th house. You also have to see the influence of other planets on the 10th house. And even more importantly, an assessment of good or bad actions cannot simply be concluded by saying Rahu, Ketu, or Saturn in the 10th house leads to bad acts. we have to assess the lagna, and we have to assess the ninth house. Okay, so a person who has a strong lagna will make them somewhat idealistic. A person who has a strong ninth house will make them moralistic and perhaps somewhat righteous. A strong fifth house will give good discrimination and intelligence, and a good third house will give them talents. So there will be no need to get involved in bad acts or consequently bad karma to survive and to thrive, just because there's malefics placed in the 10th house. The strength of the 10th house is equally important, as it indicates whether the person is able to achieve success in life independently, or whether he or she will need support from others, or perhaps need to serve others to attain their life's objectives. So the strength of the 10th house gives a very clear direction on what the person can achieve in life independently. A weak 10th house can cause the person to drift without purpose. Finally, the last thing I want to speak about is transcending the bonds of karma. Now, the basis of our horoscope is, of course, on the time, day, and place of your birth. And then, subsequently, what do astrologers do? Well, they attempt to use that information, the date and the time, to make predictions into the future. It could be 10 years into the future, 20, 40, 60, etc. But what about when you're 40 years old? What about the actions that you've been performing since birth till the age of 40? In other words, why is there not an update in that birth chart if we're saying that your birth chart is based on your karma? Now, this was a question that was posed in front of one of my teachers many years ago, and I'll share with you his response. He basically said that people mostly will not change their karma because, in essence, they always function from the same place as their samskaras, which also remain the same. And what are samskaras? Samskaras, well, essentially samskaras are the impressions that we leave on the very subconscious soul level, right? And that manifests as a person's disposition, their character, their habits, their tendencies that exist as default from birth, cultivated over many lifetimes. So normally is what he was saying, that person's character and their tendencies and their habits, or you can call them samskaras, which is where they stem from, they will stay the same throughout their lifetime. As such, the majority of people will not change their karma over the course of their lifetime, and therefore the birth chart is very reflective of what happens now and into the future. But what if you do in fact change your karma? What if after years of spiritual practices, a shift in your consciousness takes place? And therefore, the samskaras start to dramatically change, and perhaps even start to dramatically fall away. So your life also then starts to change. So once you take responsibility that you indeed have the power over those samskaras, those impressions that exist deep in the subconscious, then the rest follows. So this, of course, happens only through spiritual practice again, because during spiritual practice is when you can change your perception and therefore your action, and consequently your karma, and then ultimately your samskaras, right? In this way, inevitably, your life also has to change. With astrology, what are we doing? We're looking at planetary movements. We're looking at their energetic impact on us and how it's manifesting in our life. But all these energies have an influence to a certain extent only. Beyond the planetary energetic pull is, of course, the energy of your own soul itself. So if the soul itself does not take responsibility for the mind's thoughts and actions because it looks outside of itself at the planetary energies, which is outside of ourselves, those planetary energies are going to be the determining force in life. They're going to be the dominating force in life. So it's very important to examine the stability and strength of your mind, which is in essence the moon in the chart. Because when you take responsibility for the state of your mind, then you can overpower the situations that crop crop up in life. Otherwise, the situations will overpower you, and then the power of the soul will also diminish. It will naturally decline. And in this way, the mind and soul are intertwined, and they're always working together. It's very difficult to follow your soul path, or however you say that, until unless your mind is healthy, strong, and stable. And the only way to ensure this is consistent and disciplined spiritual practice. Karmic bonds that you come to this life with can only really be overcome in this way. So when the mind becomes strong, so does the soul, and then the connection with a higher power also becomes strengthened in this way, allowing for complete faith and belief in all that is happening to be for your benefit. Yeah. So the Paramatma and the Atma, both of their power has to combine for any situation to be overcome or overpowered by yourself. So once this Atma, which is the soul power, is high enough, and there is an unyielding connection to the Paramatma, which is the higher power, then the impossible can become possible. So this way we can transcend karmic bonds. So that's all for now, folks. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. All the best.